exposed facts. Show the tape. Put it on your website. Put it on the website.
Live from Clark Studios in Rochester, New York. Broadcasting around the world. You're listening to You Made It Political, where the voice of the keyboard warrior is finally heard and the arguments presented are put to the political test. And now, here's your host, Matt Clark.
Their bags are packed, they're lining up, and they got an all-access pass to the American dream, regardless of whether they purchased it legally or not. I'm not sure if America's the freest country on earth or just the dumbest. Because out of all the countries that I've personally lived in, if I weren't there legally, the decision would be made very easy. I'd get thrown out. But in America, we're allowed to just waltz in illegally, take jobs, destroy the economy, and rinse our healthcare system for every penny it's worth, leaving the hard-working taxpayers to settle the bill. And it gets worse. President-elect Joe Biden now plans to send an immigration bill to Congress on his first day in office. That's the first thing Joe Biden wants to get done. In January, that includes a pathway to citizenship for the estimated 11 million immigrants living in this country illegally. Well, isn't that great news to our friends to the south, who are now making a run for the border at record-breaking numbers to guarantee their piece of the American pie ahead of this Joe Biden illegal immigration bill. Newsmax reports today, and verified for you fact checkers by the CDP.gov website, that illegal border crossings in the Southwest have multiplied in the past 2 months. And in just November alone, there have been over 67,000 people caught, and the numbers continue to rise. Houston, we are about to have a very serious problem in America, as if we don't need any more problems. Let's head over to the keyboard warrior cam and see what the American people have to say about Americans getting overrun by illegal immigrants. Newsmax reports, and verified for you fact checkers by the CDP.gov website, 67,000 people have been caught at the border, with the number continuing to rise. Illegal border crossings in Southwest multiply in the past 2 months. We have a real issue here, a very, very serious issue, as if America didn't have enough to deal with. Poverty, all-time high. Unemployment, all-time high. Bankruptcy, tens of thousands of businesses going out of business every few weeks. Americans are suffering. Americans can't afford to pay their bills. They can't find work. Yet our priority, or at least the left's priority, seems to be to grant an all-access pass to the millions, tens of millions of illegal immigrants. The argument here isn't whether they deserve a fair shot. It's whether they deserve an illegal shot. Let's head over to the keyboard warrior cam and see what other Americans have to say about the insanity of allowing anyone to just waltz right in and out of this country. Sandra says, they are getting ready for Biden's open borders. Welcome to the USA, where everyone and anyone can come here to get everything for free, paid for by the middle class taxpayer. What a joke. We just tackled this. Who do you think's going to be fronting the bill? So now, not only are tens of millions of Americans, 8% of the country to be exact, out of a job, but now they're going to be handed the tax bill, so illegal immigrants can now find work. Somebody's got to pay for this. It's going to be us. We're already been beat up enough over this COVID situation. When does America put America first? Love or hate Donald Trump, he wanted to put this country first. Let's think about it. We haven't been in a single war in the last 4 years. How beautiful was that? How nice was it to not be at war? How many terrorist attacks did America have on itself over the last 4 years? It was really nice being at peace with the world. It was really nice. But now coronavirus has devastated this country. It's put so many out of work. The real pandemic here, the real issue that we face is that Americans are suffering. Americans can't afford to eat. Americans are being locked down, and the only thing that any of our politicians seem to give a damn about are whether immigrants get to come into this country and make a life for themselves. When do we start worrying about the lives of American citizens who have worked their butt off, or even the ones who have come in here legally? When do we put them first? Let's take a look at some more comments here in the Keyboard Warrior Cam and see what the American people have to say about the insanity of a bill that Joe Biden wants to pass on his first day to Congress to pardon 11 million illegal immigrants. Pete says, turn around, people. There's nothing for you here. Sure wish I could afford those iPhones you're carrying on your hands. Trust me, you're better off in your own country than here. Let's go up and take a look at this and see exactly what he's talking about. I think he's talking about the fact that they're wearing brand name clothing, designer brand clothing. They look like a pretty sophisticated group of people. iPhones in hands don't look to be struggling to me. If anything, they look a lot better off than most of Americans look here. And he's exactly right. Why is everybody rushing to come into this country right now? To be locked down? I mean, I can understand a year ago when they were fleeing their countries because of wars or other issues that they were facing socially and economically. But why does anybody want to rush into America now when we're being locked down, stripped of our freedom? This is the worst possible time that any immigrant could ever possibly want to come to America. We have our own issues to sort out first, yet we're worrying about whether people who came in here illegally should be here. Somebody made a comment on my personal feed this morning. If you haven't seen that, head over to my wall. I keep it open for everybody to see. Somebody made a comment and said, well, what do you think about all those people who are now in their teens? They've been here their whole life. They speak English. They don't know any other country. They don't know any other better. This is their home. We're just supposed to kick them out. My answer to that was, yes, it's sad. It's very sad. But why didn't their parents think about this? Why didn't their parents make the responsible decision so that they would never be in this situation in the first place? The United States has a very, very generous immigration process. If you just play by the rules, there's a great chance that you'll get in. For those of you who don't know, my wife is from Shanghai, China. She's Chinese. She came in legally. She now holds a green card. We went through the legal process. It was the biggest pain in the butt to get through because administratively, logistically, it was just a process. Nonetheless, a fairly generous process. So we went through it. She's here. And if I were to try to go about it any other way, what kind of father would I be for putting my son in a position where his wife or where his mother could get deported any day? It is a very reckless and irresponsible decision for these parents to have made to allow their children to come in illegally, knowing that at some point in the future, they would be deported. Who would ever want to do that to their children? Well, that's what they've done. And now, sadly, they have to deal with the consequences. Why put our children, or why would these immigrants, illegal immigrants, put their children in that position in the first place? So who's to really blame here? The United States for kicking out these Americans who believe they're American after 10, 20 years of being here for actually being illegal, or their parents for allowing them to go through an illegal process, for hiding the fact that they should have never been here in the first place. So at some point, we do need to start putting the blame on the illegal immigrants' parents for not making the responsible choices for their children. Let's head back over to the keyboard warrior cam. We'll see what else we have going on here. Today, we are talking about the fact that 67,000 people caught at the border, with the number continuing to rise ahead of Joe Biden's bill that he plans to pass to Congress on his first day, asking Congress to please pardon 11 million illegal immigrants. Vicky says they know that Biden will let them all come across and take our jobs and bring all kinds of illnesses into this country. How many have COVID? How many have TB? This country is doomed and will no longer be the great country I grew up in. It will look like a third world country. So, the folks that voted for and cheated for Biden, I hope you pay for what you have done. God help us all. It's very sad to see this country go through so much turmoil. It's very sad to see that the American people are last to be taken care of. Throughout everything that's happened in 2020, politicians have paid themselves. Health organizations who have encouraged them to lock us down have paid themselves. Everybody seems to getting paid except for the American people. And it's very scary right now to see what's going on. And I say scary because I almost feel like our politicians know what's going on, but they don't care. I feel like they know something we don't know, and they don't want to talk about it. Nobody wants to talk about the elephant in the room. Every other country that has implemented lockdown measures are getting relief packages to get through it. So that's why we don't hear an uproar abroad. That's why we don't hear Europeans kicking and screaming, or Germans. Yes, there have been a few protests, but that's more for their freedom, not the fact that they are starving. Yet here in America, we have kicked the American people to the curb. We've taken away their freedom and their rights. And our politicians have been so blatantly obvious in the fact that they don't care that we're suffering. All they continue to do is throw more fines at us. So here we are with a situation where President-elect Joe Biden and the left, their first priority on the agenda is to say, hey, we're America. Let's let the illegal immigrants in. First of all, let's ask ourselves why they owe these illegal immigrants anything in the first place. Votes, of course, right? So they actually owe these immigrants this favor at the sacrifice of the hardworking taxpayer. Illegals voted, right? At least that's what we have some evidence on. They allowed these illegal immigrants to cast their ballots in return for an American citizenship. So here we are, January 20th, and Joe Biden now owes all of these illegal immigrants free passage to the United States of America. As if we already don't have a horrific unemployment issue. As if finding a job in today's collapsing economy isn't already hard enough. Let's add 11 more people to the ticket and then see how badly off we're really doing. Mind you, 11 million immigrants who are willing to work for probably 50% of the pay that we would work for. Therefore, causing even more of a supply and demand issue when it comes to looking for work. Nancy says, if you think there is COVID now, just wait until Joe opens the borders completely, not to mention drugs. There's a reason that we have been building a wall. It's not because we want to be a mean country and keep people from coming in and making a better life for themselves. It's always been about drugs. Drugs, you can't even dispute this, has crippled America. And over the last 4 years, if you take a look at the statistics as far as drug trafficking is concerned, you'll find that it has been greatly reduced. We have made a real serious effort here to try to heal America's drug problem. Heroin, opium has been such an issue here in America. And you can spin it all you want, but these drugs come from overseas. They come from our friends from the South, for a good majority. Yes, it's not the only location in the world, but it's a big part of it. The wall was there to protect America. It's always been about protecting this country. Why certain people, certain parties have such an issue with trying to protect this country is beyond me. Why are we trying to fix everything that's wrong with America first? Which is what I believe we've been trying to do with this wall. So we've built this wall. We've tried to keep drugs out. We've tried to keep illegal immigrants out, which I don't see any problem with whatsoever. And Joe Biden's first day in office is want to just take the whole thing down. Drugs are going to come flying in again. Illegal immigrants are going to come flying in again. And this country is going to implode from within. Teresa says, and they threw a young couple off a plane flight because their 2-year-old would not keep her face mask on. She's referring to a story a few days ago. I believe it was United Airlines who threw a couple off of an airplane because the 2-year-old wouldn't keep their mask on. So they throw a young couple off of a plane because the 2-year-old would not keep his face mask on. Are you kidding me? Not only concerned about COVID-19, but other diseases that people are bringing into the country. No mask, but they can just come in. They can just come in. It's a huge problem. Diana says it's absolutely sickening to see illegals being able to come in and they are just given everything. When every day another homeless person dies on the streets and more veterans are becoming homeless. I'm sorry for their troubles, but they all need to be sent home. And the United States needs to start taking care of their own. That is the message of today's show. We need to start taking care of our own. Go take a look at what's going on in downtown LA. Go to some of the most poverty-stricken cities in America and walk up to that American citizen or that vet on the floor in a sleeping bag and punch him in the face. That is what you are doing. You might as well go up to him, smack him in the face while you allow the illegal immigrants to come in one by one. Line up all the veterans and slap them in the face one by one, because that is what we were doing to all of these people who struggle to find work, who struggle to get paid to get into a home again and pay their bills and eat. That is what we were doing every single time we decide to tackle foreign affairs first. This country has so many problems. I mean, there's a list a mile long of issues that we need to focus on before we even get into illegal immigrants, before we even discuss helping countries overseas. And this is what Donald Trump's campaign has been all about from day one. And half the country is screaming, can we just focus on America? Right now, and a lot of you are going to be upset that I'm saying this, but right now, I don't think we need to be worrying about any immigrants, illegal or legal, because we need to fix the problems from within. And I'm not referring to Americans who have married somebody and brought them in, or a child parent American foreign relationship here. I'm just talking about immigrants who are trying to move here with no American affiliation on their own into this country. Is now the time to be focusing on this? Right now, is it the time to be focusing on it? Isn't it amazing that this is Joe Biden's first issue he wants to tackle? I never understood it. I never understood why half of this country has always been up in arms over us saying, hold on a second. Could you just let us tackle the domestic issues first before we allow everybody else in? Could we just start feeding ourselves before we worry about how to feed tens of millions of other people? It's mind-blowing to me that we even have to argue this fact. We're all Americans here. put party aside, why are we even in a situation where we're arguing over the fact that we want to help our own people? Deborah says, how about this? Let's place them with every legislator Democratic voter. Let them move in with them. Sounds good? Nasty Sleepy Joe. And this is another comment that I continue to see a lot. You have a lot of these liberals screaming, how inhumane of you to not let these people through. Okay, well, listen. How about you open up your 6-bedroom mansion to a few of them? How about we put a handful of them with you? And all of you who are up in arms, let's start talking about opening up your doors. You all take in a family each. We'll see how quick you really are to let or open the floodgates. Because it's hypocrisy at the end of the day. It's complete liberal hypocrisy when they scream, let them in, let them in. But then when you say, okay, give them a home to live. You want them in so badly, you pay their bills, you pay their expenses. Or how about you pay that veteran's bill who can't afford to eat after he gave his life to this country? You take up his tab or pay his bills, get him into a house while the government continues to take care of the illegal immigrants. Money does not grow on trees. We have to pay for this somehow. And it sure as hell is not going to be me, because I'm not going to let my tax bill be affected because we want to now let 11 million illegal immigrants stay in America. Who pays for it? People are upset. They are angry. They have had enough. 2020 has been horrendous enough. And it's no surprise that our borders are now being compromised once again. It only took one little election for them to all realize we got a real chance here. Everybody, let's run for the border because the Democrats are back in charge. And we're about to get a free pass to the American dream. Stay tuned. We'll be right back after this message. Be right back.
Welcome back to You Made It Political, where the voice of the keyboard warrior is finally heard, and the arguments presented are put to the political test. And now, here's your host, Matt Clark.
Welcome back to the show. For those of you who are just joining us, today we are talking about the fact that we have a real issue with illegal immigrants once again trying to storm the borders. 67,000 people have been caught at the border in just the last month alone. We're just talking November here. It's a really scary situation. The numbers continue to grow. Illegal border crossings in Southwest have multiplied in the last 2 months, according to Newsmax. Half the country is furious about it. Half the country is welcoming in them with open arms. And it seems fitting. And it makes sense now that we have a new administration ready to take the White House. Joe Biden wants to pass a bill, 11 million illegal immigrants he wants to give free access to, and completely forget the fact that they have all been here illegal during the worst pandemic and worst financial crisis this country has ever seen. Americans are starving. They can't eat. They can't pay their home, their rents, their mortgages. They are on the streets. They can't find jobs, and we now just want to let in more illegal immigrants. It makes no sense. Let's take a look at an article here by Newsmax, and this is where I really kind of learned a lot here. Take a look at this. More than 67,000 people were caught illegally crossing the southwest border of the United States in both October and November. Now, here's the scary thing. This is a more than 65% increase from the previous year. Why is this? Why does everybody feel there is a real opportunity now? Why all of a sudden have we seen a 65% increase from the previous year? Now let's break this down here. The numbers included a 31% increase from the previous year from El Salvador, Guatemala, Honduras, the Central American countries known as the Northern Triangle. U.S. Customs and Border Protection Acting Commissioner Mark Morgan said during a media briefing on Monday. Why the surge? Well, clearly it has to do with the new administration headed by Joe Biden to rescind Trump administration policies. It all comes down to that. Trump has worked tirelessly. We have just spent God knows how many billions of dollars on this wall. And Joe Biden is going to rip it down in 5 seconds. All that effort, all that work, all that money put into trying to protect Americans, to help curb the real pandemic, which in my eyes were drugs. We had a real pandemic here. Drugs were coming in. Illegal immigrants were coming in, taking our jobs, feeding Americans drugs, heroin, opium. The list goes on. It was all to protect American citizens. That's all it was ever meant to be. I feel like we're now, with zero disregard to how this impacts American lives, I feel like half the country is just completely okay with this. It just doesn't make sense. It's mind-blowing to me. Let's head back over to the keyboard warrior Cam and find out what more Americans have to say about the insanity of this situation, of us allowing all of these illegal immigrants to come in. And if you weren't here in the beginning of the show, let me just remind you here, I am all for immigrants wanting to make a better life for themselves. I'm all for it. What I am not okay with is the fact that they come here illegally, that they don't go through the same process that my wife went through, that every other hardworking green card holder had to go through. The blood, sweat, and tears that my own family had to go through to make sure that we were here properly as my wife is a green card holder was something that overwhelmed me on a daily basis, but we did it because it was the responsible thing to do. It was the right thing to do, and I feel that every single person needs to be going through that exact same process. Debbie says, come get your free citizenship, welfare, phones, education, and healthcare, courtesy of Uncle Joe. Sounds a lot like socialism to me. This country is going backwards. I've lived in the UK. I've seen it. I've seen what happens when you let illegal immigrants come flooding in. I have seen what happens when you open the floodgates. I was there during Brexit. I saw the anger and the frustration that the British people were going through. They wanted out of the European Union because they had enough. They wanted their country back, and they voted for it, and they won, and they are on their way to taking back their country. And by their country, I don't just mean a white British person. I mean all Brits, no matter where you came from, but they were there legally. It is always the illegal immigrants that are the ones scamming the system. And they're illegal for a reason. They don't want to be found. Why don't you want to be found? Tax? You'll have to pay your taxes. You have to pay your healthcare bills. So if you're illegal to begin with, you're hiding something. There's something wrong. You're mooching off the system. You are scamming the system. And because you are freeloading on everything that the hardworking Americans have produced, somebody's got to pay that bill. And it's in the form of tax. And the hardworking Americans end up paying that tax bill. So the UK decided they had enough. They wanted out of the European Union because their NHS, which is a socialist form of their capitalist country, it's a very socialist, their medicine is socialized, and they offer free medicine. The NHS is going broke. Why? Not because they offer free medicine necessarily, but because there were so many illegal immigrants mooching off the system. They were taking medical support and medical help and carting it off back to their parents by the bucket loads. They were taking their financial benefits and sending it back home. This is what happens when you open the floodgates. They all don't want to come in. They send in a few people, whether on the grid or off the grid, rinse the government or the country for all the benefits they can get, and then send it back home. That's why it is so important that we document these immigrants, that we don't allow or send a message that it's okay to allow just anybody to come in. What kind of message is that sending to the rest of the world? Where in the rest of the world is this even allowed? Everywhere I've lived, if I didn't have a proper residency, it was very simple. I'd get sent home. There was no arguing it. They didn't care. They didn't care whether you had children or not. If you're not legal, if you don't have your papers, you go home. Name another country in the entire planet that allows illegal immigrants to stay in their country. I bet you can't name one, because I've traveled all over the world and there's not a single country that I was able to waltz in and out of without being departed or getting my butt kicked out within 2 seconds of finding out I didn't have the right papers. Let's head over back to the Keyboard Warrior Cam, take a look at a few more comments here on the insanity of Joe Biden's new bill that's going to allow 11 million illegal immigrants to stay in America. Holly says, yep, all at the expense of the taxpayers. Be prepared for income taxes upwards of 52%, like all the other socialist countries. We just talked about that. This is America, whether you like it or not, is heading down the path of socialism. The amount of socialist crack that our government has been feeding us lately to give us a little bit of taste of what it's like to live in a country where everything's free, which, by the way, there's no such thing as a free lunch. We have to pay that back in some form at some point. With socialism comes extremely high tax rates. And she's exactly right. If you look at over in Europe, if you look at Italy, Spain, Portugal, you're going to find some of the highest tax rates in the world, 60%, 70%. Why? Because everything else is for free. Higher taxes stunt the economy. They stunt growth, because if I have to pay more taxes as a business owner, I'm now not able to reinvest that money into hiring employees or growing my business. Which, by the way, taxes don't usually affect the rich. Why? Because they know how to navigate their way through the system in order to legally avoid taxes. As an entrepreneur, I'm able to take advantage of 5 million tax deductions and bring my effective tax rate down from 40% to less than 10% every single year, because I know exactly how to work the system. It's very clear. It's all legal and above board. So who does get stuck with the tax bill? Not the entrepreneurs, not the elite, not the wealthy, the middle class 9-to-5 taxpayer, who is not allowed to, by the way, write anything off of their income. It doesn't matter how much they've racked up in expenses, they cannot write that off because they are a W-2 employee. And I think a lot of people don't understand this concept. All they see is free candy for everybody, yet they have no idea they got to pay for it on the back end tenfold. And they're the only ones who are going to pay for it. These wealthy companies, the Amazons of the world, they're never going to have to pay their tax. Bill Gates, they won't pay tax. They know how to get out of it. They just put their companies in tax havens or offshore tax jurisdictions. That's why so many of these companies, their holding companies, are outside of the United States. They know exactly what they're doing. So although they might be advocating for a socialist agenda because it might be better for their business, they well and truly know they're not going to be affected by the tax bill. You are the hardworking W-2 American employee. Kevin says they've heard about the Harris-Biden administration and they'll soon know to be able to get away with their illegal activities. Again, what a shame. And that's exactly the reason. Why do you guys think since the election there is a massive flood to the border? Why is there a huge run to the border right now? It's because Joe Biden's first piece of business is to pass Congress a bill that would allow pathway for 11 million illegal citizens. Monique says that's what Joe Biden promised. They must take them and take away the money from the Americans to take care of them. They got to. Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, the entire Democratic Party just sold America out to the immigrants for their votes. They needed their votes, and now all of us are going to have to pay for that. Taxes need to be increased to take care of these poor immigrants. The Americans can live in poverty, but the immigrants must be cared of. We have beat this to death. We have seen the same message over and over and over. The American people will pay for the insanity. The American people will continue to suffer because our focus, once again, is now on illegal immigrants. It's once again on giving foreigners a better opportunity for the life at the sacrifice of our hardworking American people, veterans who gave their life to war to protect our borders, who can't eat, who have no place or no roof over the head. They will continue to suffer as we continue, or the Democratic Party continues to sell out for more votes. Let's be honest. Do they really care about these immigrants? I don't think so. Do they really care about Black lives? Black Lives Matter? I don't think so. Notice how they only push their agenda during election year, and then we never hear from them again, at least for another 4 years. Thank you guys so much for watching. You've been watching You Made It Political with Matt Clark. If you want to be a guest on the show, email guests@youmadeitpolitical.com. It's always great chatting with you guys. I hope you get a lot from the show, and you have a great rest of the Tuesday. We'll see you tomorrow at 3 p.m.
Thanks for listening to You Made It Political with Matt Clark.